Good morning, Myles. Thanks for joining us.
Rojrash, Zor Spas. I'm glad to be here
Rojbash.
with you again.
Thank you, Rojbash Botosh. If I start with a general question, what is the current situation of the oil production in the KRG?
We have now been over 1 year and 4 months since the pipeline was closed. The exports of oil have been halted since March 23rd, 2023. And since that time, this has cost the oil companies and all of the people of Iraq more than 18 billion US dollars. This is the loss of revenue coming into Iraq from the sale of oil at the port of Ceyhan in Turkey. And we calculate this loss by multiplying the 450,000 barrels per day. That's how much was being exported every single day, 450,000 barrels. And the price of oil on the global markets is around $80, between $80 and $85 a barrel. And if you do the math, you'll see that that is more than $18 billion that has been lost. The negotiations and discussions to get the pipeline reopened are continuing with oil companies and the Kurdistan regional government and the central government of Iraq.
What are the obstacles to restart the oil export through Turkey? If you elaborate more on this issue.
Yes, for the companies I represent, the members of the Association of the Petroleum Industry of Kurdistan region, there are a few conditions that must be met before the oil flow resumes. First, there has been discussion of new agreements that must happen between KRG and the government of Iraq and international oil companies. We think that those agreements must have be agreed to between all three parties. So, for instance, we will not have separate deals directly with Baghdad or separate deals directly with Erbil unless all three parties are consenting. Any new deal must include what we call surety of payment. We need to have a formal plan for how we will receive past due payments. The oil companies are owed more than $1 billion, and also a plan for how we will receive future payments. We prefer that the payments are made at the sale of the oil, at the point of sale. Let me explain. Currently, the payments, or are in the past, the payments for oil to companies have been made through a process of getting money to the companies after it's been processed through the budget. So sometimes our payments were delayed or withheld because of politics or because of budgetary disputes between Baghdad and Erbil. For us at APIKUR, we say, hey, let's make this easier. Disputes that sometimes happen between Baghdad and Erbil. This is how almost all commodities are sold across Iraq and across the world. If somebody produces something, they sell it, and when they sell it, it is purchased and the company gets the money.
Sometimes we
We
hear, yeah, yeah, go on. Sorry.
okay. And so those are the primary arrangements that we're looking for any future agreements.
Yeah, it looks to me that what you are talking about is the problem is in Iraq. It's not about Turkey. Am I right about this?
Yes, Turkey has prepared the pipeline and is ready to accept oil through the pipeline for sale at Ceyhan. And we know that the central government in Baghdad is being assessed a penalty every day. The penalty is around 800,000 US dollars because there are minimum throughputs that are expected through the oil pipeline. This is between Ankara and Baghdad, and every day that the oil is not flowing is another day that costs money for all of the people of Iraq.
Yeah, in terms of your conditions that you have talked about, is it KRG or the Iraqi government is not abiding with these new conditions that you are suggesting?
Well, the discussions are ongoing three-way discussions. So it's not my intent today to blame any particular party, but I do know that the members of APIKUR, the international oil companies, have been negotiating and having these discussions in good faith. We are intending to resolve this because we want to maximize our production and export onto global markets that will have the most benefit for our stakeholders, including our employees. More than 80% of our employees are Iraqi. It will have benefit for all of the people of Kurdistan and Iraq when the oil is exported. And we are trying to be proactive in our interactions with the government of Iraq and the KRG to get all sides to come to swift resolution for this issue.
How optimistic are you about the restart of the oil export through Turkey?
What we believe is that the more discussions that happen and the sooner we can get some written proposals on the table, that will help resolve this issue. It has taken a long time, but now there are little signs of progress, and those include some of the previous meetings, and we're having continued discussions that are sometimes behind the scenes that we do not have come forth publicly, but this is some technical discussions that we are having to try to get to the point where there can be formal proposals and those can be presented to all parties for proper, thorough legal review.
Yeah, you have talked about, as you know, there are three parties like the KRG oil companies and Baghdad. Uh, which party has been most negatively impacted by the suspension of oil export?
The people hurt most by the suspension of oil exports are the people of Iraq. You see this, the Kurdistan region in Iraq, the economy is 80% based on the oil and gas industry. So if you are now having a political dispute that prevents the maximum amount of revenue from coming into Iraq, this hurts people because there's less money into the oil and gas industry in Kurdistan region. Before 2003, there was not a proper formal industry for oil in Kurdistan region. Since that time, international oil companies and members of APIKUR have invested more than 10 billion US dollars to explore and also bring in the machines and infrastructure needed to drill for oil and produce oil and have it ready for export. This is an expensive investment, but the companies made this investment because there's so much oil resources, more than 45 billion barrels. According to the KRG, there's more than 45 billion barrels of oil underneath Kurdistan region, and our goal is to grow the industry in Iraq's Kurdistan region and have it as an example for the rest of the world of a great place to invest. And at peak production, in March of 2023, there was 0.5%, half of 1% of the world's oil was coming from Iraq's Kurdistan region. This is strong for Kurdistan region, strong for Iraq, and we would like to return the production to full capacity and have even more capability of Iraq to export oil from the south through Basra and Qasr, as well as the north through the Iraq-Turkey pipeline.
Yeah, thanks for providing these insights about the oil investment and your investments in the Kurdish region. But I have a question about, like as you said before, it has been close to 1 year and a half. The KRG oil has not been exported to Turkey. How this oil is used in the past year and a half? The oil that is produced in the KRG.
Yes, yes. In the past year and a half, the companies that I'm working with have had to rely on local sales. And what are local sales? Local sales are production of oil that is sold to authorized, vetted buyers, and that oil is sold into local refineries in Kurdistan region. The volume of local sales production is about 60% of what we were producing during the time of exports through the pipeline, but it's at much lower cost. As I mentioned earlier, on the global market, oil sale price is about $80 per barrel, but local sale price is between $30 and $35 per barrel. So you can see that it is only about 40% of revenue that is coming in for the local sale price. That's why it's important that we have the exports, because when we have the exports, we're able to bring more money back into the region.
Right. Despite of these obstacles, does the KRG still abided with the contracts that you have signed before the suspension of the oil export to Turkey? I mean, the KRG is still fulfilling its financial obligations toward these oil companies?
Let me describe. We have production sharing contracts with the KRG, and that those type of contracts designate a percentage of oil that will go to the KRG and a percentage of oil that the oil companies can keep for themselves for operations and sharing contracts. It's just now the revenue is lower because the price is lower. But we have seen earnings reports from some of our members in recent weeks that the operations overall continue to be profitable, and since the pipeline closed in March of 2023, the market for local sales has increased and some of the production has increased, and we even have companies that are intending to make additional investments in their production throughout Kurdistan region.
Yeah, if we go back to Baghdad about the restart of KRG oil export to Turkey. As far as we know, the oil production in Baghdad or in Iraq exceeds the amount that was decided by the OPEC. So, how that would be regulated? I mean, if the KRG started to produce its oil to export it to the international market, how how Baghdad will rearrange this with OPEC agreements?
We are aware of the recent OPEC agreements and some penalties that were made on Baghdad. Here's what we think. If there are any adjustments to Iraq's production based on OPEC guidelines, that those adjustments should be made in the same way that they have been made historically. Let me explain. Historically, when Iraq has been directed by OPEC to limit production, those limits have come from the state-owned oil companies, the oil companies that are owned by the nation of Iraq have limited their production. And we think going forward that all international oil companies should be treated fairly across Iraq, no matter if the company is operating near Basra or if the company is operating near Zako, that those companies, the international oil companies, should be treated equally in the event that there are OPEC cuts. And if there's any changes to production, that the companies should be remunerated or given their proper money according to their contracts if there are production cuts directed by OPEC.
Yeah. Despite of the Jahan oil pipeline, is there any other viable alternatives to export the KRG oil to international markets?
The process of exporting oil to international markets is best done through the Jahan pipeline. And there's an important strategic advantage for Iraq. The nation of Iraq is such a strong producer of oil and also of natural gas products that those products need to reach the world in the most efficient manner possible. And taking the oil through the pipeline to Jahan gets the oil onto these large oil tankers for export globally. Let me give you a for instance. Did your viewers know that the United States is importing more than 150,000 barrels of oil from Iraq every day? This just shows you the type of impact that Iraq can have on global markets as an energy leader. And at a time in the world where there's oil that is sanctioned from countries like Russia and Iran, it is important that Iraq is part of the solution to keep the world energy markets flowing freely. And that is why it is important that there's the pipeline that is taking oil out of the northern route of Iraq, as well as the very mature oil exporting industry that has been going on for decades in the southern part of Iraq.
If the current problem, as we have seen it, the obstacles for the export of KRG oil continues to like this for, let's say, for next few months or for the next year. What are the legal implications for this problem?
We believe that our contracts are valid, legally binding, that through the London Court of Arbitration, there could be legal procedures to protect our contracts. But what is important now is that we focus on coming to new agreements. Legal proceedings take many months, many years, and are expensive for all parties. We think a better solution is that everyone comes to the table and comes up with agreements. Another point that we have put forward to the federal government of Iraq is that APIKUR member companies are willing to sell oil through Iraq's state-owned oil marketing, state oil marketing company, SOMO. We're willing to have those sales transactions go through SOMO at Jahan and are ready to accept direct payment through the Iraqi finance ministry into the companies for those oil sales. And this would give all parties 100% clarity and transparency on the volume of oil sold and also the intended buyers. We think this is a solution that would be easiest and agreeable by all parties. We know that the Kurdistan Regional Government Ministry of Natural Resources has also said that they are willing to sell oil through SOMO, and the central government in Baghdad has asserted that they are the only body that can sell oil from produced in Iraq. So we think this is something that could be a quick solution to get the oil flowing through the pipeline and satisfying all three parties.
Thank you, Myles, for talking to us today. It was a very interesting and insightful interview.
Well, thank you for having me. This is an important issue, and we're going to keep pressing with all parties and try to have a solution because it benefits, again, the people of Iraq. We have seen since 2003 an industry grow up in Kurdistan region where now we have people who are petroleum engineers, who are in truck driving, who are operating machinery, and have built roads and other infrastructure around the oil industry. And we want to keep this industry going and growing for many, many, many years to come.
سپاس بۆ مایلس کاکینز وتەبێژی ئاپیکور کە پێکاتوە لە کۆمپانیەکانی بەرهەمهێنانی نەوت لە هەرێمی کوردستان هیوادارین دیدارەکە بەلایەوە شەوە سەرنجڕاکێش بوو بێ هیوادارین وەڵامی بەشێک لە پرسیارەکانی ئێوەمان دابێتەوە